This is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news this Wednesday. I'm Janelle Slade. Well, after more than 3 hours of questions and discussion, a request for a non-discrimination ordinance in Great Falls is dead. MTN's Colter Ainstad explained what Great Falls City Commissioners have decided to do and how the center is responding.
Hello, Tyson Hobbine, resident of Great Falls.
With the Great Falls City Commission chamber as packed as it can be during the coronavirus pandemic, public comment began with an hour of speakers in favor of the non-discrimination ordinance requested by the city's LGBTQ+ community.
If we don't have an NDO, there's no way I can stay with my kids and with this community because there's no way I can support it.
Some spoke in person.
I'm giving my voice of support.
Others by phone.
Would send a message to businesses and industries. The Great Falls is more than ready to receive their people.
An hour later, those opposed to the ordinance got to address city commissioners for an hour.
The unintended result of an NDO is an absolute assault on two foundations of our society. And that is, those are the religious liberty and freedom of conscience.
We feel there's already enough discrimination, anti-discrimination laws on the books as far as housing.
Prior to public comments, the city attorney reiterated her opinion that state laws make a non-discrimination ordinance unnecessary. Afterward, the president of the Great Falls LGBTQ+ Center gave a PowerPoint presentation explaining the purpose of the center and the need to follow several other cities in the Treasure State in adopting an NDO. In the end, city commissioners raised questions about the legality and legal consequences of passing an NDO and agreed not to pursue it, but instead create a resolution affirming the city supports the LGBTQ+ community.
We can become a model community of best practices for inclusion for all protected classes and use this as an opportunity to make those statements.
We'll need to sit down and discuss among the board of the LGBTQ Center what the next steps are.
In Great Falls, Colter Ainstad, MTN News.
And we've learned that the primary reason the center was asking for an NDO was to prevent housing discrimination. City commissioners did not say if or when they expect to have a resolution to vote on. A 16-year-old Alberton girl is dead after an incident on Highway 10 west of Missoula late last night. A 16-year-old male was driving a female passenger on Highway 10 just before midnight when the driver pulled over, saying he thought he had hit something in the road between Frenchtown and Alberton. Both of the teenagers from Alberton got out of the car. Then the driver got back into the vehicle. The female passenger was still outside the car in the front. The male driver says he believed he was in reverse, but accidentally drove forward over the girl. Well, today, 4 more deaths related to COVID-19 and 90 new confirmed cases across Montana. 2 of the deaths in Bighorn County, 1 in Yellowstone and 1 in Marr County. The 2 victims in Bighorn County, a woman in her 60s and a woman in her 70s, increasing the county's death toll there to 19. The latest case in Yellowstone County, a man in his 80s, marks the 50th victim there. Yellowstone County still with 4 times the active cases of any other county across the state. Well, Libby school officials say they're working with the local health department to contact trace for 2 students who tested positive for COVID-19. The positive results were confirmed over the weekend for 2 students at Libby Middle and high schools. Right now, there is no evidence the virus was contracted or transferred to other students. If there is evidence the virus is being transferred within the school district, that's when schools will go completely remote. Families at Big Sky High School in Missoula received word yesterday that an individual at the school had tested positive for COVID-19. In an email sent to parents, Big Sky Principal Jennifer Courtney said the individual was last seen in their facilities on Thursday, September 3rd. Based on the results of that case, investigation to date, now the health department is not recommending a school closure for Big Sky. One company has paused its trial for a coronavirus vaccine due to a possible side effect illness. AstraZeneca was in the late stages of its testing when the participant in the UK came down with an unexplained sickness. Now, the company says it's the only case and is investigating if the side effect was actually from the vaccine. On the weather scene today, Ed, when I took my puppies out this morning, I did whatever I could to not step on the grass. The frost was so thick.
And a lot of people were scraping windshields first thing in the day. We had to dig out the scraper. Now we can put it away for a while, fortunately. But cold morning temperatures across the region, mainly into the 20s and 30s. Some of northeastern Montana, where you're in the teens yesterday, you did recover to 20s and 30s. But there were some record setters, or at least unofficially. These are all just the readings that we picked up on this morning from Moreland and Sheridan, Wyoming, Miles City and Livingston, Montana. All look like you have new record cold temperatures for September 9th. And now temperatures are beginning to warm. All those plus signs mean temperatures are warmer now than they were at noon yesterday. Take a closer look at the forecast details coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, some of the flames may be out, but the damage is now very real for several families south of Roundup. The Bobcat fire destroyed 10 homes and 13 secondary structures. The fire has burned more than 30,000 acres and is holding at 50% contained today. The cause of that fire that blew up and forced evacuations last Friday is still under investigation. In Gallatin County, officials confirmed 28 homes were swallowed by the Bridger Foothills fire burning just northeast of Bozeman. Gallatin County Sheriff Brian Gutkin says even more outbuildings were lost, although he doesn't have an official number yet. Gutkin praised firefighters, saying more homes would have been destroyed without their efforts. So far, the fire has burned more than 7,000 acres. One Bozeman woman risked her life to save horses and other livestock from the flames. 24-year-old Teresa Ball said authorities told her no one would be able to go in and save her if she got trapped. But the Good Samaritan headed into the Bridger Mountains anyway and returned with dozens of animals, likely saving their lives. Ball says she loves the Bozeman community and wanted to show just how selfless it can be.
I really just hope that it shares a positive message, and they know that, you know, there's a bunch of us out there that maybe don't live on Bridger Canyon Road or Jackson Creek, but we're all ready to help and jump in if need be, and honestly, you know, ready to do most anything for everyone. Wow.
Well, you can help victims of that fire by donating to the Bridger Foothills Fire Relief Fund at GreaterGallatinUnitedWay.org. Well, the Whitefish City Council has voted to deny an emergency gathering ordinance for downtown. It ended with a 5-1 vote. Now, that ordinance, if passed, would have prevented large groups from demonstrating from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Officials say this comes after protests and demonstrations have taken over the sidewalks on Baker Avenue near City Hall. City Manager Dana Smith says the biggest concern is safety, and the Whitefish Police Department has been working overtime to provide support and mitigate those protests. Well, Governor Steve Bullock filed a lawsuit today against the Postmaster General over what he calls unlawful changes to mail delivery. Bullock's lawsuit says Postmaster General Louis DeJoy's actions have harmed Montanans by impeding the flow of mail, including medical prescriptions, utility bills, and other essential communications. The suit names recent changes to Postal Service policies, such as eliminating overtime pay for certain workers and changing how election mail is classified and charged. The suit also says that under DeJoy, the Postal Service has removed mail drop boxes and dismantled large sorting machines in Montana. Governor Bullock is asking that the court declare DeJoy's policy changes unlawful and immediately require steps to undo the recent actions. Well, we have more ahead on your MTN Noon News. We take a look inside at how mental health programs have changed for Missoula's Native and Indigenous people since the pandemic. But first, meteorologist Ed Mcintosh is in next with your statewide weather forecast.
Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Ed Mcintosh.
We've had a nice recovery in the temperatures here as of midday, and temperatures are now into the 50s and 60s across the state. 64 in Cutbank, 65 in Havre to get the afternoon started, and also 64 over in Jordan. And where we had record cold temperatures this morning through southern Montana, we're mainly hanging out in the 50s here as we get started into the afternoon. The winds haven't been much of a factor through the day, but around Billings they've been strong enough to make it feel a little bit colder. Then also into the eastern plains where we've had some problems with frost frost and freeze first thing in the day. It's still breezy at about 10 to 20 miles an hour. It's going to hang in there about 5 to 15 miles an hour across much of the region for today. And while we're mainly cloud free to get the afternoon started, we are watching this closed low here into Utah and Colorado. Same system we talked about yesterday, but it's stalled out. That's what they do, and they'll just sit there for a while. But as it starts to edge up, it will play a little bit of a role in our forecast, especially into the eastern plains by the time we go from Thursday night into Friday. In the short term, we're still under that northerly flow, so temperatures will be held back, and we're already losing that morning chill. So readings in the 60s to low 70s should be pretty widespread for this afternoon. Dry conditions, generally the light breeze that I mentioned, and the overnight temperatures won't be as cold. We'll be looking at a lot of readings in the 30s to low 40s first thing tomorrow morning instead of those 20s and 30s with a few 40s in the mix. And then tomorrow afternoon, even more readings start to hit the 70s, low 80s by later in the day. But here's that low I talked about. It starts to scoot across areas of eastern Montana and eastern Wyoming, creating some clouds and a few light showers. Other than that, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to squeeze much moisture out of any of this weather here in the short term. So here we are by Friday afternoon, just looking at a few clouds lingering into the eastern plains, but otherwise dry and warming conditions as we get through the rest of the work week. And that's going to take us into the early part of the weekend as well. For today, most of the temperatures will top off in the 60s to mid 70s. We'll be looking for sunshine, generally a light breeze throughout the afternoon today. We'll pick up a few clouds through the late evening hours, but nothing that's going to bring anything close to the threat of any kind of precipitation. And then the overnight temperatures don't chill off as much. Now, we still have some readings that'll drop down into the low 30s, especially here in the valleys of southwest Montana, West Yellowstone. Another cold morning for you. Mainly the upper 30s and 40s across the northern half of Montana, and some chillier temperatures as we look into the Bighorn Basin of northern Wyoming. Tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at a lot of readings into the 70s east of the Continental Divide. You can see a few clouds starting to move into Wyoming and southeastern Montana as that low starts to move back into play again. But readings could be as warm as the mid to lower 80s in northwest Montana tomorrow afternoon. So here's the extended 5-day outlook for Kalispell and Missoula, looking at those temperatures gradually warming, mid 80s on Friday, and then kind of holding steady. Could see a little bump in the readings Sunday for you in Missoula. Great Falls and Helena also looking at those 70s, turning into more low 80s by the end of the work week. Plenty of sunshine, dry conditions, and the overnight temperatures will stay pretty rock solid in the 40s for you. Bozeman and Butte, cool morning tomorrow, starting off in the mid 30s, but the warming up into the 70s for the highs. Could start to hit those low 80s around the region by the time we get into Saturday and Sunday. And for the eastern plains, 60s, 70s, and then possibly low 80s in portions of the eastern plains by Friday, hitting 80s, could even hit some low 90s Monday. There's the weather. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Ed. Well, Missoula's native and indigenous population often turns to the All Nations Health Center for help, but the pandemic has changed some of those options. MTN's Connor McCauley dives into the specific impacts to mental health services.
All Nations Health Center continues to offer up mental health services during the pandemic, despite having to change their platform entirely to digital.
We serve the Native American population living in and around Missoula, and we already have a suicide rate that's higher than the general population, and we can't afford to let that rate go any higher.
So offering our services in an online format is super beneficial to all our clients.
The online format has had some unexpected benefits, making the move to online even more effective.
Anywhere that is safe and comfortable for them to take time to talk to a therapist, our services are now available. Instead of having them have to come to the clinic, therapy gets to take place in whatever setting is going to work best for them.
According to Douglas, it takes a resilient, flexible staff to make this kind of change work. She also adds that these services are offered to anyone who uses All Nations.
Yeah, so our behavioral health services is open to everybody and anybody. So we meet with clients as young as 5 to elders.
Barnett said one of the biggest obstacles is getting working Wi-Fi out to some of the people using these services. They hope to have a better solution to that problem in the future. In Missoula, Connor McCauley, MTN News.
Thanks, Connor. And Connor tells us that both Barnett and Douglas see the online format of mental health services used even after the pandemic. We're back one last time right after this.
Farm and Ranch Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Welcome back for today's Farm and Ranch News. Looking to agriculture events today, the 95th Annual Montana Ram Sale and 7th Annual Montana Youth Sale is set to take place in Miles City at the Eastern Montana Fairgrounds on September 16th and 17th. The Youth Sale will be held Wednesday, September 16th, starting at 6 p.m.
We've got 640 head, and some of those bigger lots of 100 will be off-site, so they won't all be on-site at the event, but we've got a pretty good lineup from lots of good family ranches across the state, so we're excited for what's going to be offered for people to buy and take home.
The next day, on Wednesday, September 17th, the 95th Annual Montana Ram Sale will take place starting at noon.
We've got about 280 rams consigned, so that covers us from our Suffolks to the Hampshires to the crosses, our Rambouillets and Rambouillet crosses, and then of course the Targies. So we've got a nice offering, and we've got 24 consigners this year.
COVID-19 protocol will be followed at all of the events, and educational seminars for producers will also be held on September 16th.
So on Wednesday, we'll have some educational programming from 10 to noon. And the topics are going to be economic tools and risk management for sheep producers. So that'll touch on lamb and wool and a few things here and there in between. We'll have an MSU sheep program update. And then we will be doing another topic on ram selection and breeding soundness evaluations. And that topic will be live on our Wool Growers Facebook page. So if you can't make it and you still want to get in on some of that info, you can follow along there. And we hope everybody can make it either online or in person. And just want to extend a thank you to the Miles City community for hosting this event and welcoming us and sponsoring portions of it and just all the support we receive from the community.
Now, if you're unable to make it to Miles City for the sales, you can bid live online with FrontierStockyards.com and also via the phone. For the sale catalog, videos of the sheep, and more, visit mtsheep.org. We'll be right back. Returning back today, the Lewistown Livestock Auction will be under new ownership if the transaction is approved by the Montana Department of Livestock. Back in August, Kyle and Jody Shobe of Lewistown submitted a petition letter to request a change in name and ownership of license for Lewistown Livestock Auction. Additionally, Lyle and Jan Allen, the current owners of the yard, submitted a petition letter also requesting approval for the change in ownership to the Shobe family. Changes to a new ownership of a livestock market are subject to approval by the Board of Livestock and require a public hearing. That public hearing will be held on September 18th, 2020 at 1 p.m. at Lewistown Livestock Auction. Finally today, USDA's Risk Management Agency wants to remind producers of fall planted crops in Montana and Wyoming to apply for crop insurance coverage for the 2021 crop year before the September 30th sales closing date. Crops that apply include fall planted wheat with winter coverage, forage production, and forage alfalfa seed in select counties. Contact Risk Management Agency for more details. Well, friends, that will do it for today's Farm and Ranch News. From the ranch, I'm Lane Nordlund.
All right, thanks so much, Lane. And one last look at our forecast with Ed on this Wednesday.
Yeah, finally looking a little more like fall weather for a change, as we're seeing plenty of sunshine. Temperatures have recovered pretty well since the really cold morning readings yesterday. Just didn't warm up today. At least we're starting to move back into the right direction, and we're going to see that general trend continue here as we get into the next few days. Kalispell, Missoula, 70s, and then moving up into the mid, maybe upper 80s by the time we start getting towards the end of the weekend. For Great Falls and Helena, same story. Dry days, light winds, not as cold overnight with a general warming trend. It's going to be a gradual warm up as we start to pull the temperatures up to even above average readings by the end of the work week and into the weekend. Butte, Bozeman, looking at some chilly morning temperatures again tomorrow. Maybe not as cold as it has been, but still close to freezing first thing in the day, with the temperatures continuing to show that upward trend. Plenty of sun and dry conditions across the area, and across the eastern plains, temperatures could move into the mid to upper 80s by the Sunday into Monday. We could actually see some low 90s in the mix, and with this dry period continuing ahead of us, we go from snow to concerns about wildfire conditions again by early next week.
Thanks so much, Ed. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.